Hey there, welcome to the Film Fan Club show. I am Sam Carrico. I hope you guys are excited as I am. Today is our mid-season premiere, and we're talking about one of my favorite 1,000-year-old humanoids who doesn't know what year he's in. I don't mean the presidential debate. Did you guys see that? It was crazy. No, we're going to talk about Doctor Who. Series 14 is wrapped up now. Chris Burnham from the Tulsa Doctor Who Viewing Society will be back in a little bit to help me talk about it. But the coverage so far by a lot of the other guys has been pretty mixed. Okay, who am I kidding? The reaction has been really bad. I feel like hashtag Doctor Who is dead has been trending on Twitter, X, every week since the season premiere. Since the finale has now come and gone, I've heard people say that the return of SUTEKH was underwhelming. I've heard that it broke the lore, and, of course, that the Ruby Sunday mystery box ultimately led to nothing. And they're not wrong. It actually reminded me a lot of Series 8, Peter Capaldi's first season. For those who don't know, I'm a new Who fan exclusively. I started during the Matt Smith run, but began with Series 1, Episode 1, Rose from 2005. By the time I got to Series 8, it was a different show to me. I missed the characters, the actors I had grown to love, and I thought the showrunner, it was Stephen Moffat at the time, I thought he'd grown tired, past his prime. I actually quit watching by the time the show got to Series 9. And then the 60th anniversary came. To get ready for it, I went back and watched David Tennant's original run, and after I finished it, I thought, you know what? Let's continue on with the Matt Smith. And after that, let's continue on with Peter Capaldi. I've now gotten past the point where I originally gave up and finished Series 9. And you know what? Series 9 is a lot better. It's like the show fixed itself. They dropped the storylines that didn't work. Peter Capaldi found his groove as the Doctor. We're back to rocking and rolling again. I think my point was really cemented when I went to the Fan Expo Dallas a month ago. Not only did I meet David Tennant and Catherine Tate, I know, I also saw Jodie Whittaker, Alex Kingston, and Mandip Gill in a panel discussion. But just being around so many like-minded fans, friends, lovers, it made me realize that despite the ups and the downs, what's important is coming together to celebrate this thing we all love, to build each other up in our love for this shared experience. There, it didn't matter what era of the show you liked most or what era the actors were from. There, everyone was welcome, because Doctor Who is for everyone. So back to Series 14. It may have been a mixed bag. Hell, it may have been a weak season. That's okay, we'll talk about it. But Doctor Who has had weak seasons before. It prevailed then, and through us, through each other, it will prevail now. Okay, we've got a great show for you lined up. Let's get right to our discussion. And joining me now, let's welcome back to the show the coordinator for the Tulsa Doctor Who Viewing Society. Chris Burnham is back with us. Hey, Chris, good to see you again.
Hey, it's great to be back here, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about, don't we? Yeah.
It's been a month full of Doctor Who mania. You know, we touched on it last time you were on the show, and for anybody that's joining us and didn't watch our previous episode, in our last episode we talked about the 2023 Doctor Who specials, the David Tennant 60th anniversary specials. Now we're talking about Series 14 of Doctor Who. Series 14 of Doctor Who has just finished airing. By generation aside, I hated that. We're past that now. I'm past the by generation. It's whatever. We did briefly touch on so we're going to talk about Series 14, but we only briefly touched on the Church of Ruby Road whenever we did our previous review. So I wanted to kind of give us the chance to talk on that a little bit more, because I did rewatch it, because I guess Disney Plus has it as episode 1 of the season in their numbering system, which is threw me off. But so I went ahead, I was like, why not? It's been a few months since I watched it, so I rewatched it, and it does set up things for the rest of the season, so I'm glad I did. Have you rewatched The Church on Ruby Road?
No, I actually have not rewatched any of Shooty's stuff. I just watched it one time straight through. So I'm working off of first glances, not any type, or first impressions, not any go back and reassess type of things. I wanted to try to approach this the way that I would traditional Doctor Who, of this is the first time through, and not go back and study and tense and all that type of stuff. I haven't even really read a tremendous amount of background material on any of these, so I'm not giving anything up, except I will say, and for those of you who are watching, I will say, when we get to the end of the season, I'm going to tell you who I think Mrs. Flood is, and it's a
Oh,
theory that I have not heard proposed anywhere.
okay. So you're not going to tell me that it's Clara because I'm already sick of that shit.
Yeah,
Everybody said,
same.
"Oh, she wore a sweater. It's Clara." I'm like, get over yourself. But yeah, but no. Church on Ruby Road sets up Mrs. Flood. It
Yeah.
sets up the Doctor going back to to Ruby Road, which is
Mhm.
important for later. I really appreciated going back and watching Church on Ruby Road. The deliberate setup that they clearly knew where they were going with some ways, which is weird because like some of the payoffs aren't really as good as they could have been, but they clearly knew where they were going. So I guess props to that in a little way. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed it. It's like your class. It's like you mentioned last time that Church on Ruby Road is a lot like Rose in a lot of ways. It
Yeah.
follows a lot of the same beats. All echoed that, but it's a good formula. Why not? And then jumping based off of that, Space Babies, I guess episode 2 or episode 1, however you want to call it, the season premiere proper. It feels a lot like The End of the World. I believe that's the title of the second
Yeah.
episode of the
Right.
2005 run.
Okay.
It does feel a lot like it. It's not the same plot, but it follows a lot of the same beats. You know, the first episode is an adventure on Earth. They join the TARDIS crew at the end. They go out, and the second episode is their first, like, whoa, this is space. I didn't know there was this much green in the entire galaxy, kind of thing. What did you think of Space Babies? I did not like the boogers. I don't like children either, so it was kind of a little bit of a miss for me. But what did you
Not a
think?
fan.
Not a fan of Space
I
Babies.
not a fan. And as we progressed through the season, I became less and less a fan of it because at first, when you see it unto itself, when you have it and the Church on Ruby Road as the only examples of shootings Doctor Who,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
I mean, this is Disney. I guess this is what we get, but it's not. They build to better, and I just keep looking back at Space Babies and going, what were you thinking?
It's a
Why why
yeah.
start with this? It's very 2005 RTD. So
Mm-hmm.
you remember in Eccleston's first story in Rose,
Mm-hmm.
there's the burping trash can.
Yes.
This is what that reminded me of. It's
Oh
that
yeah.
level of humor and body function jokes and boogers and snot are primary components. And I'm just like, oh my God. And this is a recurring, this is a in general, this is a recurring theme with RTD that I see through this season. He is rehashing, not always for the best, he is rehashing a lot of ideas that he had on his first run through. And this is going
Yes.
to become way more apparent as we get closer towards the end of the season. But here I'm thankful, I'm very thankful that he basically dumped all those bad things in the first one, got them out of his system, no pun intended, and moved past it. But no, Space Babies is literally my least favorite story of this entire season.
It might be mine. We'll figure it out as we go on further. But I just think mostly because did they release that and Devil's Court at the same time?
Yes, they did.
It was so I guess they're doing a joint series season premiere, but
No, this
I would have
this is a
released sorry, I would have released Devil's Court as the season premiere, like standalone.
oh,
I
okay.
really like Devil's Court a lot more. Do you think that would have been a better, like just changing up that order a little bit?
Actually, yes, I think it would, because since it follows up on the themes from the 60th anniversary special and
Yeah.
connects so heavily with that, I think it would have been better to start off with that. But I also think Devil's Court is a step up, not a huge step up, but a step up from Space Babies. I just think Devil's Court is a missed opportunity because the whole
Yes.
marketing for Devil's Court is marketed around this idea of basically Doctor Who meets the Beatles.
Yeah.
And then they barely use half the Beatles. They don't
Yeah.
do anything with them.
It's it's go ahead. Sorry, I'm sorry.
I just I'm like, you've clear. I understand if you can't get the rights to the music, but you've got the personalities,
Yeah.
you've got the people, you've got the actors, you've had the Beatles in the real Beatles is as a telesnap, well, not telesnap, but as a telerecording in the show before. You can draw on this. Why not do something with this? I
Yes.
don't get it.
It's weird
But
because
the
oh,
overall
sorry.
concept, it's okay. The overall concept of the story wasn't terrible. As somebody with some musical background to it, I liked what was what the basic main plot of the story was, what the threat and what the ideology behind it was. I liked all of that. I thought the performance of oh drat, now I'm blanking on the
Jinx
enemy's name.
Monsoon.
Okay. I thought their performance was outstanding. I
Yeah.
thought that they did a great job.
Same. Yeah, I like Jinx Monsoon a lot. It's kind of, I think I agree with you about they marketed it so much around meeting the Beatles, which felt like cheap and cheesy. I don't know. It felt like a gimmick episode. It reminded me of a Glee tribute episode. Glee would sometimes do these tribute episodes where it's like,
Yeah.
this week on Glee, we're covering the Beatles and
Yeah.
we're all going to dance around and sing the Beatles. And I'm like, all right, we're just not doing a story this episode, are we? And that's kind of like what it felt like that from the marketing this episode was going to be. But then because of the right-wing backlash, I knew that Jinx Monsoon was going to be a big thing. And I was like, oh, who is this character? I want to see, is it as, are they going to be as bad as some people are saying they are? I enjoyed the character. I enjoyed Jinx Monsoon to the point where I think they should have been the overall villain of the season or a very strong first episode villain. I think that Jinx Monsoon's Maestro was really wasted in this episode, and I think they do defeat them at the end of the episode. So, I can't remember. They could come back. They could always come back, but it just felt like I think missed opportunity is the right way to put it. In many ways, the marketing focusing on meeting the Beatles, whenever you do nothing with that story, and your actual story is centered around this villain that could have been way more than a one-off. This villain to me is way more memorable than SUTEKH, and we'll get there later. But that may be sacrilege to say. But we'll get there. Anything else about the Devil's Chord? I liked it. It's a step up over Space Babies. I think I might have liked it a little bit more than you.
Yeah, I think it's kind of falls in the middle in terms of preference for me. And I agree with you. I think it would be truly a missed opportunity if they don't bring him back. But they had a great character in the Celestial Toymaker, which look how long it took them to bring him back. And so hopefully it won't be as long of a break before they bring Monsoon back as well.
Jinx Monsoon. I'm a fan. So Boom is the next episode we're talking about. It's kind of a bottle episode. We get two Dr. Light, really two back-to-back Dr. Light episodes. What did you think of our first? I guess he's just not doing a lot.
This isn't a Dr. Light. This isn't the Dr. Light story.
73 yards is the Dr. Light story.
73 and Dot and Bubble are more Dr. Light stories.
Yes, that's it. Yes, but he's kind of immobilized, and Ruby does carry a lot of this episode. So I guess it's not a Dr. Light, but it's a Ruby heavy episode, I guess you could say.
I thought this one was okay. There's a very classic Doctor Who story, fourth Doctor story called Revenge of the Cybermen, where Ian, one of the Doctor's companions, steps on a landmine and has to be removed out of it. And I'm like, oh, this is a nice little throwback to that ideology of what's happening, but you extend it over a whole 45 minutes rather than about 10 minutes in that particular story. I thought the plot was it was a little hard for me to follow between all the faces on the screens. I wasn't completely understanding what the real conflict was as the story progressed until you got to the end. And so outside of the immediate concern of if the Doctor moves, he blows up and takes a whole bunch of stuff with him, I wasn't grasping why these other rolling machines were super important and why we should be concerned with them overall.
Yeah, worth noting this is a Stephen Moffat episode, and like a lot of Moffat episodes, it seems like he has a lot of good ideas, but it's kind of just like cramming it in there a little bit. I don't know. Maybe it would have been two-parter. It doesn't really work as a two-parter, but also worth noting. This is, I didn't notice it until the finale, but this is when this is one of the instances in which we see the old lady, Susan
TARDIS,
Susan TARDIS, yes. And then also we introduce, I believe, the actress who will be the companion next season. Does that happen in this episode?
Oh, is that the case? Okay.
I think so. The Indian girl, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did read about her. I do remember now that you mentioned it that she had been cast. But I didn't even think about the fact that it was the same person.
Yeah, so, I'm trying to think about more of what happens in this episode.
See,
they do a fake out with Ruby. She almost dies.
Yeah, they don't really. There's not a lot that sinks in here, and it's funny because I knew Moffat had written one of these stories, and usually I pay attention to the writers when they come up on the screen, but I actually felt like this wasn't the Moffat episode because it didn't really have a lot of I thought a lot of his signature check marks.
Well,
that's true of the next episode. That one, 73 yards. just screams being a Moffat episode to me, and yet it wasn't.
That's interesting.
But we'll get to that in a moment.
Right, yes. The Moffat episode, it does have Moffat loves to have like a sappy, like dad like storyline or parent kind of storyline, and they do have that kind of at the end of Boom. I feel like
we'll talk about that too when we get to the end, because that's an RTD factor as well. RTD loves families, but he loves absentee fathers.
Okay. Well, the dad who dies in Boom and then becomes a hologram AI, and then at the end they have him infect all the other ambulances.
See, I think that's RTD's influence on this story. I think.
You don't even.
I suspect he. No, seriously, I really suspect he said whatever Moffat handed him first. No. Let's change this up a little bit, because man, RTD loves to mess with dads.
So funny. Yeah. I mean, Father's Day is a great episode.
Yeah, right.
Which brings us to perhaps the best episode of the whole series season. I really enjoyed 73 Yards. This is our proper Dr. Light episode, because he's only in the beginning and the end. It was really whenever Millie Gibson gets to step into the lead role a lot. Kind of reminds me of a series 8 or 9 episode whenever the TARDIS gets really small, and then Clara has to has to go be the doctor. Obviously different story, but it's in the same like kind of style, and the companion steps up and goes on an adventure herself. And I also like the political undertones in this episode. But what did you think about 73 Yards?
So I love 73 Yards. As I said, I felt like this was the Stephen Moffat story and everything except the actual name of the person credited with writing it. It had all those components. It had the mystery, it had the dropping clues, it had the feel and the tone of that. So I know that a lot of modern Who fans, when they're introduced to Doctor Who and they come in and you don't want to just throw them rows to start at the beginning. You have to give them a little hook to draw them in. A lot of people throw Blink at them.
Yes.
And Blink is a Doctor Who light episode, but it succeeds because it's so well written and so compelling and so interesting as a concept. This one is much the same thing. There are still things that even though they have explained a lot of the story and explained a lot of the relevance to things, and even referenced 73 Yards in the season finale in one little passing line, there's still things I don't completely understand, and I'm okay with that. I don't understand what made the people scream and run away. I don't understand why that version of Ruby was gesticulating all the time. But I'm okay with it, because I don't need to know that. I love the fact that we had this usefulness of that distance. I mean, again, the Doctor in Empire of Death says a lot of important things or strange things, I don't know what the word he uses, happens at 73 yards. And for Ruby to figure out that she can move herself out to get the distance from that prime minister, that's brilliant. That's amazingly brilliant. The crafting of this, the tone of this is really, really good stuff here. And I if all the stories have been like this, then yes, except for one, because I actually don't think this is the best story for the season. There's one I think that is better than this. But yes, this is really good stuff. Really good stuff.
This is like Doctor Who. It's kind of when we talked briefly about Wild Blue Yonder, I was like, it just felt like a great series 4 type episode. This kind of feels like just a great RTD Stephen Moffat era, Doctor Who, Doctor Light episode. And yeah, and I already mentioned the political undertones. I like that like you talked about being able to like figure out exact lineup, how far away 73 yards is, how it sets up the world and like the rules of what's going on deliberately over the course of the episode. So then finally, whenever Ruby gets that crystallized aha moment, I can do this with this power that I have. I thought it was good. I did see the twist at the end coming a little bit, like, oh, the old woman is Ruby.
Oh yeah. I saw that too, but I figured that out, or at least it was the front thing in my head way early. But I wanted to see why. I wanted to see how and why, and I was satisfied in general with what they gave me for the how and why of it going on, with still leaving me some how and why questions. I got enough answered that I didn't need to have the rest answered and still felt like it was compelling.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great balance of like like deliberately explaining what's going on as the episode unfolds, but then there's still some questions at the end, and that's okay because that's how life is. You don't always know. I like 73 yards quite a bit, but now I'm just chomping at the bit to figure out what you think is an even better episode. And there's only three possibilities, because one of which I know is not that. It's not going to be one of these. But the next one we're going to talk about is Dot and Bubble. This is the Black Mirror episode, also written by Russell T Davies. All of these are written by Russell T Davies except for Boom and Rogue, I want to say. That makes a lot of sense, actually, with Rogue being the odd one out. So what did you think? I'm sorry, which one are we on now? We just got
We're on Dot and Bubble.
Dot and Bubble, the Blackbeard episode, the Black Mirror episode. What did you think of the Black Mirror episode? I did enjoy it.
This is my favorite episode for the season.
I could see that. That makes sense.
This is absolutely my favorite episode for the season. And it's not just because of the commentary that you get about, there are so few science fiction shows that I feel have touched anything on the growing dependence, and I will use that addiction, if you will, to social media and cell phones. The only other series I can think that ever did an episode about this was The Orville, and they did a great episode about it as well. But the fact that you have, again, enough relatively Doctor Who light, or Doctor Light episode. He's not completely gone the way he was with 73 yards, except for beginning and end. But he's very minimalized in this story. He and Ruby both are very minimalized in this story. But the fact that you have this main character that we are supposed to feel sympathetic for, and yet at the end, when in any other situation, especially even most other Doctor Who, the Doctor comes in, the Doctor provides the solution, the Doctor saves the day, saves the civilization, saves whatever, and whatever groups of people it is that he's doing with, they just kind of abandon what they had been before and say, oh, thank you, Doctor, for saving us and showing us how we need to be going forward. And this does the exact opposite, because they can't help but be spoiled rich brats and cast him off and treat him as if he's nothing, even though he's done literally. I think this is a wonderful commentary on the perception. And again, as someone who deals with teenagers 9 months out of the year, it's not completely the reality, but there's a lot of reality to it. The perception of modern teenage mentality, the entitlement, the face in the phone, the complete inability to know how to do anything despite having the greatest information source possible in their own pocket. And they still don't have she couldn't walk. She couldn't walk without the bubble telling her how to walk. I love this. I loved this so much.
That particular moment I felt called out by, because I was like, because I am known to have my security blanket in the form of a GPS on my telephone anytime I'm driving anywhere. Places I go all the time, I should know how to get there, but I just do it because I need to know exactly what turn I need to take and when and how far away it is, because otherwise I feel lost. And but yeah, taking that's something that relates to all of us, bringing it just one step closer, bringing that close, because that's what science fiction is. It's the fiction in science fiction, and I thought it was really well done. I had not really thought about before how the ending to this episode, I should have, it's there in your face, but it is the inverse of learning the lesson. The Doctor meets these one-off side characters, they learn a lesson and they're made better by him. But no, these people are there's some people that even the Doctor can't save. That's a really good point. I like that a lot.
And you could see that in his face.
Yeah.
You could see when they push him aside, and when they say, no, you can't, you're not one of us. We obviously know how to be better, and we're going to continue doing essentially the exact same thing we've always been doing. And you can see the look of his face of, have you not been paying attention? Which I've gotten so many times. I've done so many times myself. Have you not been paying attention to what I've been telling you? You can see in his face the absolute, it's not anger, it's desperation.
Yeah.
Of, please listen to me. I'm trying to help you. And they won't listen.
Yeah, and the ending and the twist, I should have seen it coming, but I didn't see it coming. The twist of like, oh, well, the reason, like the Dot hates you. That's like the thing, and knows everything about you. It's so, what happens when your phone, nobody knows you better than your phone, even the worst parts about you. And then you're made Like these people are obviously shown to be horrible human beings in the episode, so of course their phones, the equivalent of their phones, hates them. It was that was well done too. And then the way the Dot like starts like trying to go through somebody's brain. Oh my God, it was kind of like I'm like, we're watching a Doctor Who episode on Disney Plus, guys. Come on. It was good. I did enjoy it. And then yeah, what a fantastic way. It was a ballsy move to do two Doctor Light episodes back to back. But
It was necessary. This is one thing I did read about, that it was
okay.
necessary because Shooty was shooting another series of what's the other series he does? I want to say
Sex Education.
Sex Education. Yeah. He was doing another season of Sex Education at the same time he was shooting Doctor Who. And so they needed to craft ways for him to be minimally present for Doctor Who so he could go off and shoot the Sex Education stuff he was doing and then come back and finish up Doctor Who.
That makes
So
sense.
they had to structure it with him gone 2 back-to-back episodes for that.
It's the jaw, it's the shark in jaws. You know, sometimes limitations are the best ways to like, because then that gives you a little place to start. All right, we need to have Shooty in this as minimally as possible. Okay, let's start with that. We'll put him on a webcam. All right, let's start with that. Let's do a social commentary about 21st century technology. Okay, you go further and then you develop the idea, and then it's the shark in jaws. I enjoy that. Is there anything else you want to say about Dot and Bubble before I
No, not about that
complain?
one. I just absolutely love it. 10 out of 10.
No notes. Dot and Bubble, really looking back, yeah, 73 yards and Dot and Bubble. I like Dot and Bubble as well. I still might like 73. I don't know. They're both really good. They might both be my favorites. I like them both a lot. But yeah, they were back-to-back banger episodes. And then I find Rogue just to be I don't know. It fell flat for me. I did not enjoy Rogue at all. I like Jonathan Groff. I like Glee. He's in Glee. He's Rachel Berry's love interest in Glee, and he's a fine actor. I enjoy him, so I have nothing against him. Did not find his character to be that charming. Maybe you can enlighten me on this. Are there a lot of other one-off love interests for the Doctor? Because he seems to,
No.
yeah.
Here's the thing. The concept of the Doctor as the centerpiece of a love interest is something that did not exist until the Eighth Doctor movie. Prior to that, you have companions that pine after the Doctor. Joe Grant is, no, sorry. Actually, I'll take that back. Well, sort of take that back. The Doctor, the third Doctor, is clearly in love with Joe Grant, but we don't understand that until she decides to marry Professor Jones at the end of her time, and we can see it on his face because he can't bear to stick around for their engagement party, and he drives off on Bessie alone. And that's where we understand, okay, you love this girl, and you know as a Time Lord you can't do this type of thing. There's a comedic moment in the Aztecs, which is a first Doctor story, where the Doctor ends up accidentally proposing marriage through a coffee ceremony with an Aztec woman, and he doesn't realize he's doing it. And okay, so that's funny, and it's nicely done. But having the romantic aspect of thing, it's not a thing until Paul McGann kissed Daphne Ashbrook, and the entire Doctor Who universe fandom just went ballistic, going, "What? The Doctor doesn't kiss. The Doctor doesn't snog. The Doctor doesn't have relations. Well, what is this?" Well, when RTD brings it back, and I get it. I agree with you. I didn't like Rogue that much, but I think for different reasons. I'm tired, and I think I may have talked to you about this before. I'm tired of seeing the Doctor in a relationship because all I'm seeing are not completely different angles of the same thing. When Eccleston and Rose got together, it's trauma inspired. He's been through a war. He is desperately lonely. He finds this person who he seems to vibe with, and they connect, and it's cool. And it's really him needing her. And then when he regenerates, I think actually she needed him. It seems to be more from her perspective of her needing him at that point. And then they separate, and again, it's a bit trauma-inducing, but he knows she's alive, and so it's not that bad of a deal. Okay, that 2 seasons I can handle. I can handle the Rose connection. But then we get, and you haven't seen this, but then we get, oh, well, now we've got a female Doctor. Let's pursue the possibility that maybe she could have an interest in one of her companions, and she's got 2 male companions and 1 female companion. So let's just tease the idea that she's into the girl. Let's see what's going on here with that.
That's
And
right?
it was all played with Yaz.
Yeah.
And it's all played very committed. It's a, well, we maybe, but not really, but we can't speak about this, but I don't know. Okay, so now you've got a doctor who is clearly gay. You have a producer who is gay. You have a show that has a huge gay audience. And so now you push forward, let's put the doctor in a romantic situation with another man and see what happens here. And this is where none of that is the problem for me, believe it or not. None of that is the problem for me, except for the retreading of let's make the doctor a romantic figure. The problem for me is you had Captain Jack. If you want a character for the doctor to be a male character for the doctor to have a thing with, why not bring in Captain Jack? Because obviously, to me, all Rogue is a retread of Captain Jack.
That makes so much sense. He's like a stand-in for Captain Jack. I never thought of it that way, but you're right. But there is an age difference now between John Barrowman and Ncuti Gatwa, so it wouldn't be like Christopher Eccleston kissing John Barrowman in 2005, you know?
Right. But I don't, I mean, I know there's been some issues with Barrowman. Apparently, there's been cancel culture issues with him. He was at a convention in Oklahoma City, and it's the second time that I haven't gotten to actually be able to see him in Oklahoma City. He's been there twice, and both times I've not been able to go down and see him. But he I don't know where he stands now in that scenario. He's clearly doing the convention circuit, so he's not completely ostracized. But maybe the BBC has an issue with him. I don't know.
I doubt the BBC would bring him back.
I'm going to assume that's the reason why they don't bring him in. So RTD quickly mashes up somebody that it looks like him and throws him in this position. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it because it reeks just a little bit of desperation. And I didn't do it. I didn't like it.
I don't like the one-off nature of it. I'm fine with I've said before, I have to be consistent on this. Chris, I have to be consistent on this because I'm not a hypocrite. I am fine with the doctor as a romantic figure. That's fine. You have to build it up, though. I don't like, this is not a sitcom. We do not do one-off romantic storylines. Even if it was with Ruby, it'd be a little weird, but it'd be whatever because she's a human 19-year-old girl. But with the doctor, regardless of gender, I don't even care about that. The doctor's pansexual. We've established that. It's okay. But Rose is set up over the course of 2 seasons. So whenever by the end of season 2, when they're in love, you buy it. Whenever Clara is sad about her boyfriend Matt Smith regenerating into an old man because that means they can't be boyfriend girlfriend anymore, you buy it because the boy in those 6 or 7 episodes do they set it up. Mostly through Matt Smith and Jenna Coleman's acting. A lot of it I understand is through their chemistry. I'll give it that, not the writing. It's built up though. I don't like this one-off nature of the storyline. And so Ncuti Gatwa's acting his heart out. He's doing a good job as an actor. So whenever he's bawling because Jonathan Groff is gone or whatever, I just don't buy it. And I just don't see the doctor as being the right vehicle for a one-off romantic storyline. And I found the Bridgerton, I don't watch Bridgerton.
I don't either.
I could give a shit about that. So the whole episode I felt like was a dud. And I don't mean to be rude because again, obviously people are gonna be like, well, Sam, you hate gay people, don't you? No, I hate the one-off half-baked romantic storylines for characters that doesn't jive with. It's my problem with Rogue. Let's do the season finale as one big episode, if that's okay, because I did watch them back to back, and I know a lot of people in the UK watched them back to back, like in theaters and whatnot. So it seems like a lot of people were presenting them as one big. Well, it's a 2-part story. So, The Legend of Ruby Sunday and the Empire of Death is. I mentioned that Jinx Monsoon's Maestro is my favorite villain from the whole season. Should have been the overarching villain, and I still maintain that because SUTEKH, I thought was an underwhelming main antagonist. I felt the old woman being it all throughout history was a weak series long storyline. I thought it was a weak kind of, it was like it kind of felt like the planets missing, going missing a little bit, especially at the end of this storyline when all the planets are coming back. He says, "Welcome back to you." Anyways, I'm jumping around a lot. I thought the finale was okay. I did not like it as much as I think I would have liked alternative potential finales that I put in my head. And that's probably my fault. I don't know. Well, let's get some structure to this. What do you think, Chris?
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to assume you've never watched Pyramids of Mars, have you?
No. If that's a classic Who episode, I
That's
have not seen.
that's so you know those scenes in Empire of Death where Shooty is showing Ruby these things with Fourth Doctor and Sarah on that screen. Okay, so those are all taken from Pyramids of Mars. Pyramids of Mars introduces SUTEKH. SUTEKH is a badass. SUTEKH, the story Pyramids of Mars is a tremendous Fourth Doctor story and a tremendous Doctor Who, classic Doctor Who story. It is very self-contained. You can watch it without any real understanding of what Doctor Who is. It is a great introductory vessel for Doctor Who. If you, back in the classic days before the modern series, I would have thrown that. It would have been like one of my top 5 things to throw to a brand new person saying, I don't know what this Doctor Who stuff is. Show me. Boom. You watch Pyramids of Mars. SUTEKH is a god. He is a level 100. You can't beat this guy. And yet the Doctor somehow managed to. So with that said, I come in with a different perspective on SUTEKH, I think, than you have. And I loved the first part of this. I thought the second part, as often is the case, was a letdown from, and not like a drastic letdown, but was a letdown from the first part in the buildup. I loved the return of Unit. I enjoy this grouping. I think there's some interesting aspects of it. I could see them easily spinning Unit off with this collection of characters and having it carry a series on its own. I was really happy to see Mel back and to see Mel used, because unfortunately Mel is the companion who I think, first of all, a lot of fans hate her because she is like really screamy when she was with Colin and Sylvester, and she was brought in as a gimmick because she was well known for like I don't remember what the term is right now, but for light theater, light stage work, variety type stuff. And so a lot of fans really did not like her back in the 1980s. And I don't think she got a fair shot because she was only there for a season and a half. And they were really short seasons, like well, I say short seasons, they're about the same as a modern season, but half-hour stories.
Like eight episodes.
Yeah, right? So to see her get the opportunity to be an action hero, like she is in Empire of Death, to be a focal point, to be a used but used well harbinger, that's not the right word because that's somebody else, of SUTEKH. That was great. I was very happy to see her get some screen time, get some front time. This time portal thing is intriguing, and I have to say, I like many of these type of objects, I always say to myself, why are we just now hearing about this? But the Doctor had this thing happen too in the TARDIS. He had all these things. Oh, here's this time-space visualizer. We're going to watch some stuff. Here's this other, oh, I've fixed this thing that's been broken until now because plot. Now we'll put it into place. Okay, I'll accept that. The breath of death is something that they did not do in Pyramids of Mars. There was no way they could have done that in Pyramids of Mars with the budget that they had. Loved that. I did not like, and I do not understand the purpose, ultimately, of the big long scene where the Doctor talks to the woman and gets the spoon. Aside from getting the spoon, I don't understand why we have that scene. Because I kept.
Did I miss this? Could you
there's
elaborate?
that
What is
scene,
this?
okay, so there's the scene in the middle of Empire of Death where after the universe has started to crumble, the Doctor, he's on this arid planet. He's dressed up in like a robes, a monk's attire.
Oh, I do know what you're talking about. Yes.
And then he has that long conversation with that woman out of nowhere.
That felt weird. Yeah. I was
It
like,
did,
what are we doing?
It felt like the episode ran short and they had to go back and stick in about 5 minutes of a scene here, which would get him the MacGuffin he needs to fix everything at the end, but doesn't adversely or positively affect much of anything. So I didn't get that. I was fully expecting that to be the revelation of who Ruby's mom was. I thought, oh, here we go. This is moderately, traditionally, and tropey and overused, but here we go. Nope, that wasn't what we did. So I don't understand what the purpose of that scene was.
Real quickly, is it lore breaking? Like,
Okay, so
something
I
I
had a long
yeah.
discussion with this with my best friend because he and I have very different opinions about this idea that SUTEKH
Yes.
has been going from planet to planet, pushing
Mhm.
out Susan TARDISes on each of the planets to
Yes.
prepare for this big event. Okay. And I get his perspective, so I'm going to share mine and then I'll share his. In my perspective, it doesn't make sense because, sorry, it's not that it doesn't make sense. It's that it seems like it's not really shouldn't have done what he said it does because, yes, every planet that the Doctor visits after Pyramids of Mars should have a Susan TARDIS on it that's preparing to do the big thing. But that's a fourth Doctor story. So there's three whole Doctors, and yeah, there's some planets he visits more than once. But plus, trust me, there's a lot of single one-off planets that he goes to we never see again on TV that shouldn't, if we're just sticking with TV lore, have Susan TARDISes on them that should have been exempt from this. And maybe that's covered by the idea that this death wave is spreading throughout the universe very slowly, and seems to be taking time, like it's taking time to get to this far-reaching planet that he has the conversation with the woman on. Okay, so that's my perspective on it. My friend said, no, no, no. The Doctor cast SUTEKH into the time stream at the end of Pyramids of Mars. But we don't know when he crosses him again and SUTEKH grabs onto the TARDIS and has been traveling with him. So it could be much later down. No clue how far late down that's actually been going.
Yeah.
And so it's not it's not the immediacy that I was expecting it to be, and that it seemed like it worked in
I
my head.
hope it's that, just for the sake of a little bit of continuity and like just to like make like retcon a little bit in my own head, my head canon, as you I
Mhm.
guess you could say. I
Right.
I will choose to believe that. I think the authorial intent, I think the text is that he's been on the TARDIS ever since the Fourth Doctor story. Is
Okay.
my it was is that's
Yeah.
what I think that I think you're correct in your assessment. I hope your friend is correct in his assessment because that would be a lot less lore
Mhm.
breaking. Because like, gosh, that's just yeah, it's very
It just seems like it's a long. Really, I get that some characters, some monsters play long games. Fenric is a Seventh Doctor villain who plays a long game with the Doctor, and it's a really long game that involves Ace and that involves a lot of chess, and it's set up over a very long time. And I suppose if you're dealing with millennia long gods that do these things, they think different perspective than we do, and so they're willing to wait. But it just seems weird to me that an anger-driven SUTEKH who's just been cast into the void and has the opportunity to do this doesn't take that opportunity as quickly as he can. I don't know. It just doesn't quite ring right to me for that to be the case.
couple things. This season hints, and it's really leaned into in this finale. Susan Foreman, is that her name?
Susan Foreman, yes,
Susan Foreman, the Doctor's granddaughter. If you've got a
yes.
grandchild, that means you've got kids. Somebody made a meme of like the BBC saying that with dollar signs in their eyes.
There's a line for that. There was a line for that in the season. Somebody said, "Well, if you've got a grandchild, you that means you've got children." And
Yeah,
the doctor said something like, "Yes, but not yet."
yeah, because time. Yeah.
Because time is different. Yeah, and that's going to be important when I get to something on later on here. But yeah,
Oh, yeah.
but yes,
Well, yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of talk of Susan, um, and there's a lot of you mentioned Clara being somebody that you had seen frequently referred to as the possibility of actually who Mrs. Flood is.
Right.
Susan's one that I've seen the possibility bringing up that is
Oh,
Mrs. Flood, and I don't think they are. So I see we're about 10 minutes left, and I
yes.
don't want to miss this opportunity. So I think I'm assuming you're going to want to just wrap
Yeah,
this up.
I think we're close to being able to wrap it up if you
Okay,
just want to
so
jump straight in.
let me talk about my Mrs. Flood theory. So I've read Clara, I've read River Song, I've read Susan Foreman, I've read Romana. I don't think it's any of those four. Romana, you would not have caught this, but the last shot we see of Mrs. Flood in the white robe, that same white robe is the very same robe that we see Romana in the very first time that in her very first story. Not immediately when we see her, but when she's on this cold planet called Rebos in her very first story, she's wearing that exact same thing. So I get that makes sense. Romana could regenerate, but she doesn't have a reason to be angry with the Doctor that I'm aware of. Susan has a reason to be angry with the Doctor, I suppose, for being abandoned and never coming back. I don't know. I think it's a bit too obvious. I don't think RTD is that obvious. I think he's using that as a red herring. Clara shouldn't change because she's frozen at the last second of her life. There is no reason for her to look old. And to my understanding, River Song used up all her regenerations when she gave them to Matt Smith to bring him back to life, so that she shouldn't change either. And I don't think we've missed an iteration of her. We've seen all the ones that she was until that particular point. So it shouldn't be any of those. So that leaves two others. Well, that leaves one other that I've read, and then there's the one that I think it is. The other one I've read is a character that you're probably not familiar with called the Meddling Monk. The Meddling Monk is a first Doctor character. He's only been in 2 stories. He was in a story called The Time Meddler, which is the first time we ever saw somebody from the Doctor's planet besides the Doctor and Susan. And then he's in 1 episode of a big 12-part thing called the Dalek Master Plan. And he has a reason to be angry with the Doctor because A, he's a villain character, and B, the Doctor left him stranded with a non-functioning TARDIS on some barren planet. And so we haven't seen him since then. So it's possible it could be him. And the hint that's supposed to be for this is that we see the Doctor in this robe that looks like what the Meddling Monk wore, and the Doctor drops the date 1066 in that list of dates of years. And 1066 is when he met the Meddling Monk, because the monk is trying to interfere with the Battle of Hastings and change the course of Earth's history as a result of that. So that's possible, but I really don't think it's any of those. I go back to my theory that RTD has daddy issues, that RTD loves to make stories with fathers that are not the best fathers, that they're absentee, that they're dead sometimes. I mean, Rose's father dies, Donna's father dies. But if you look at the scope of other things in the history of Doctor Who, Nissa's father became the Master, not with his own will, but he had his body taken over. Perry's stepfather was abusive. There's a lot of daddy issues in Doctor Who. So I think, I've not come across this anywhere, I think this time RTD has flipped the script. And instead of making it a companion daddy issue, let's put the Doctor in that position. Let's have the Doctor be the absentee father. I think Mrs. Flood is Jenny.
Is Jenny?
Jenny.
Jen? Who's Jen?
Jenny.
From the one-off David Tennant's wife. Oh my God! Wow. Oh, I never thought about that.
I think it's Jenny.
That would be interesting.
I would love it if this were true. But I'd love to see this theory come out.
What a callback too, because she's still out there. And when I rewatched that episode, I forgot that she lives at the end. So again, I just rewatched him like in the last 6 months or so. So when I got to the episode, I was like, she's still alive. Oh my God, I completely forgot. And that could, the fact, I love the idea that could play back in, and I love RTD going back to, wrapping up things from before. Yeah. I like all this. How is David Tennant is still out there? How is he going to feel whenever Mrs. Flood is his daughter/wife?
Yeah.
What the hell? I didn't get a chance to ask him that when I met him at Fan Expo Dallas. What's it like being married to your daughter? The real ones know what the people that are just casual Doctor Who fans, they're like, what is he saying? But the people that really know, they know. Yeah. That's interesting. I hope it's that. I hope, or at least if it's not that, I hope that the actual answer is as interesting as that, because I had not heard that before, and that's good.
No, I've not either. I've not seen it anywhere either. And I can't take full credit for it because, again, it was something that was kind of poked at me by my best friend in there, and came together in my head. But wow, I'd love that to be the case if he's doing that.
That's why I love these conversations, Doctor Who conversations with fans, getting around speculating and theorizing on what could happen next. It's just, it goes back to just celebrating this thing that we all love. Real quickly before I kind of wrap up the season, do you think Ruby's coming back? I cried at the end when Ruby found her mom and said goodbye to the Doctor. I was in shambles. Do you think Ruby's coming back? Because they tried to.
I'd read both things somewhere that she was done after the season. And I read no, she's not done after this season. So I don't know if they're bringing in a new girl. I would say that if Ruby's back, she won't be back for the whole season.
Like a Martha. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't necessarily see a two companion situation. I think the structure of Doctor Who today lends itself better to having Doctor and singular companion, because when you crowd the TARDIS up and you only have 45 minutes to tell a story, as opposed to really an hour and a half like you used to across 4 parts, you don't have as much time for everybody to get screen time. So limit the number of main characters and you give everybody more opportunity.
I like one Doctor, one companion as well. I think it's a working strategy. It's partially why I'm not as interested in 13. But we'll table the 13th Doctor conversation. Wrapping up this conversation is kind of reminded. It's good to have rewatch the first two Capaldi seasons, and then also now Ncuti Gatwa's first season. Doctor Who is just kind of going through patterns. You said it last time you were here. There are good seasons, there are bad seasons, there are better seasons, there are worse seasons, there are middling seasons. This was a season of Doctor Who. I enjoyed Series 14, some really good standout episodes. I like Ncuti Gatwa's iteration of the Doctor. I liked Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday. Some of the episodes were kind of misses. I think the overall storyline was a little bit, not as good as it could have been. A lot of missed opportunities. But I'm reminded just of the potential of Doctor Who, the storytelling possibilities, and again, this whole journey has reminded me how much I love this franchise. So I will be watching the next season. I think it's safe to say, Chris, you will be too. Would you like to kind of wrap up this season of Doctor Who and your thoughts on it?
I agree with you. I think there's good. I think there's bad. I think Ncuti grew on me as the season went along. I wasn't unhappy with him at the beginning. I just didn't feel like I understood who he was. I still feel he's missing that key, like, every in Modern Who, every Doctor has that key speech. Capaldi does it in his first one, and Matt Smith does it towards the end of his first season. There's that key monologue where you go, there's the Doctor right there. I don't think Ncuti's had that yet. I thought he was going to get it in Empire of Death, and then it came up a little bit short for me, so I'm not sure. I think it's still to come for him. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him develop and see where this goes forward from here, because I have great hopes. I really have great hopes, and I hope that a lot of people learn to love this show again the way that they did, well, the way that I did back in the mid 1980s.
I'm the Doctor and I save people. That didn't come until Capaldi's second season. So I mean, and that for me is when Capaldi really came into his own as the 12th Doctor, and that's in season 9. So it could be still to come for Ncuti Gatwa. Yeah. I would love to see like a Big Bang type of speech, the Pandorica opens type of speech from Matt Smith, kind of given that to Ncuti Gatwa. Chris Burnham, thank you so much. If anybody's in the northeastern Toklahoma area, you know how it is when we're watching Doctor Who in medical. Yeah, so in the northeastern Oklahoma area, the Tulsa Doctor Who Viewing Society is a great group on Facebook, and sometimes I remember I've been to a couple in-person events, but they've been a few years now. Do you guys still do in-person events?
We haven't for a while. We kind of lost the place where we could have them, and I'm still looking for a place that meets our needs, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to start up again very soon.
It's a great follow. Great. Join the group on Facebook if you're in the area and want to learn and want to talk Doctor Who with other fans. Chris, maybe we'll talk again sooner rather than later. The Christmas special is coming up soon. So thank you so much for being on the show. Hope to see you again soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, that's our show. I'd like to thank Chris Burnham for joining me this week. Next week, Manny Marquez is on the show to talk about his new documentary film, Make Peace or Die. Make sure you follow us here on YouTube. We're also on Apple and Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Sam Carrico. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you next week.